when a goal is scored 10 seconds in, whose fault is that? Is it captain, players, manager?
Well, there was a little bit of luck in a way, and there was a little bit of downright bad defending by United in terms of switching off. And Mourinho's already said that. He's admitted it in his press conference at the end. He said we made 4 mistakes there were 4 mistakes within 10 or 15 seconds. Now, you can look at the Harry Kane and say technically could they pull that back and restart the game? The answer is yes. But I mean, if you look at every time a penalty's taken, whether somebody's got a foot in the box, that's not the reason Tottenham won this game and United lost. That's not the reason this goal was scored. They punted it forward. Kane was physical. They didn't pick the second ball up. And Christian Eriksen took a chance, was clever, got his just rewards, back in the side after being out. And by the way, Spurs missed him. And it was a great finish. And United never recovered after that.
That's the thing. How bad were United in the second half? They were worse in the second than in the first.
I thought United at least looked like they come out to play when it was 1-0 down. Once the second goal goes in, it was game over. Lloris called in to make that save from Lukaku late in the second half. But outside of that, United had played their best football in the opening 20 minutes. But once that second goes in, concerningly, they just seem to raise a white flag. And that is totally unlike any Jose Mourinho side.
I think it's also like you're 2-0 down away from home. It's difficult to play at 2-0 down. On top of that, Pogba coming off, less than an hour into the game. And then at that point...
But he wasn't injured, Gab.
But he was obviously not having a good day.
No.
And I think it's been pretty obvious recently when it comes in terms of creativity and whatever else. Without Pogba, United are going to struggle.
Spurs went to United without Harry Kane. That was the big story back then. And earlier in the season, they lost, didn't play particularly well. There's been some big news for United. Mourinho signs the new contract. Sanchez comes in. Everything's great. This was one of their worst performances for a while, in my opinion. This season, anyway. Spurs were by far quicker, sharper. The tempo of the passing was better, and I thought the best player in the park was Christian Eriksen, who didn't play at Southampton in the last game when they were poor, who didn't play in the FA Cup. But he showed just how important he is to Tottenham, picking those little passes in those areas he picks up in the field.
It's so disappointing to see United perform this way. For 2 days, we've been almost yelling at the SPI because they gave United, 23 or 24% chance. And then they show up with this type of performance.
The SPI got lucky. Well, because United, they can't predict United were going to be that bad.
Maybe so, but 10 seconds in, a long ball is launched forward. Anybody, you're asking, and you have to wonder, are Man United maybe not expecting Spurs just to launch a ball forward? But the way that Kane beats Jones in the air so easily, so early on in the game, raises a red flag for me straight away. And then United just never seem to recover. And for all their pace, for as good as they are on the counter-attack, I just don't feel that after 30 minutes gone in the game, they tested the Spurs defence or Hugo Lloris anywhere more than they should.
There's an element of Tottenham needed this more.
They definitely needed this more.
Absolutely, and that showed. I thought that showed because, let's be honest, for United, they're going to get in the top 4, right? That's going to happen for them. What position it'll be, I don't know, but I think it'll probably be second. But they'll be in the top 4. They're not going to catch City. Clearly, nobody's catching City. So their concentration is kind of elsewhere. They've got the Champions League to think about, whereas Tottenham have got an eye on, well, I thought it was catching Liverpool. It's catching Liverpool and Chelsea now after Chelsea's result. So Tottenham absolutely showed that come what may, they're going to be up for this fight till the end. Conte's all right. I mean, I honestly don't know. I know they've signed Giroud today, which I don't think is a particularly bad signing, I have to be honest, and it's a good experience as a backup potentially for Morata. But maybe I just don't know what's going on at this club longer term, and I certainly don't know what's happening with Conte longer term.
Well, in terms of Conte's future, I think we've talked about it. It's out there. He didn't extend the length of his contract when he got his bump last year. A lot of people wouldn't be surprised if he'd moved on at the end of the season, regardless. Either after winning a trophy or after not winning a trophy. I think right now there's another issue where there is a bit of a vacuum because Michael Emenalo left the club, of course, in November. He's now the director of football at Monaco. And you don't necessarily have that technical vision coupled with the authority. There's still people there who know what they're doing, but they don't necessarily have the personality. I think that's frustrating for Conte. and it's really hitting them hard.
They got the draw with Norwich recently in some of the game. I think the one against Stoke.
It was 4 0-0s in a row.
Yeah.
Four draws in a row.
Newcastle, one of the teams anyway. They beat Brighton. They did manage to beat Brighton, but in between they get knocked out of the League Cup by Arsenal, and deservedly so. And particularly when Arsenal made a bulky changes in the first leg at Stamford Bridge, now they lose. Not just get beat by Bournemouth, they get pasted 3-0 at home by a team early in the season that looked as if they were going to be fighting for their life for Premier League survival. This is a guy who had a 13-game winning streak last year. I know there's been some changes, but why is he not getting a tune out of these same players that he was last season? I mean, it's rather worrying if I was a Chelsea fan.
For a long time, I thought if anybody was going to pip Manchester United to second place, it would be Chelsea. They just need to get their house in order, but this shows that the house continues to crumble even further.
So Chelsea drops to 4th on goal differential behind Liverpool. How high of a level is the concern right now for Chelsea as far as that top 4 spot? Because a month or two ago, you might have said they felt like a pretty sure thing.
Agreed. Yeah, I totally agree. And you know, I think with all those 3 teams, I think Man United, wow, they've got a bit of breathing space, but it's not much. I don't know.
Everybody else has their issues, and they've been more than evident. And the one thing that we've been saying about Manchester United is, you know, they can grind a result out. Now, again, if you're a betting man, I'm sure you could get shorter odds on Chelsea winning 3-0 than losing 3-0 at home to Bournemouth. They win 3-0, they go second. But now this side, and now all of a sudden I'm sitting back and noticing the last time Chelsea won a title, Jose Mourinho couldn't get a tune out of his team. It saw the end of him. Now Antonio comes in, wins a title, and I'm starting to look at these players and wonder what exactly is going on in that dressing room.
If I was Tottenham, I'd be encouraged by what I'm seeing above me.
Let's move on to Olivier Giroud. He moves on to Chelsea. What do you make of this move? Do you not like the idea from the Arsenal standpoint of doing business with the team that you're chasing for that top 4 spot? Does that bug you at all?
Not particularly, no, I have to say. I think Giroud's a good get for Chelsea, bearing in mind recently they were talking about Andy Carroll. Now, I don't know how much truth there was in this. Andy Carroll, Peter Crouch,
Ashley
Barnes. Olivier Giroud is a big step up from that. I think something like a goal almost every 2 games for France. He potentially could lead the line for them in the summer. I'm not his biggest fan, but could he do a job for Chelsea with the Hazards and the Pedros and the Willians around about him if Morata's not performing? I think he can.
That's the thing. Is this move more about replacing Batshuayi or is it about pushing Morata?
I think it's more about replacing Batshuayi right now. And I think pound for pound, as an out-and-out striker, I don't think Olivier Giroud is better or pushes Morata.
Even when he's not scoring?
Even when he's not scoring. Saying that, I will say, I feel Giroud is best as part of a front 2. And maybe that comes into Conte's thinking in bringing him in. Maybe that's where he finds some success that he didn't find at Arsenal. But in terms of pushing Morata to make Morata better, I don't think Giroud's the answer.
Well, Giroud can't push Morata?
Well, I don't know. I mean, Morata's a much better player, but, you know, Morata has to actually be fit and not have his bad back and not be suspended. And
score goals.
We've seen the whole reason we're in this situation is that Morata isn't always available. When he's not there, we have got, you know, Hazard playing at center forward or Pedro at center forward. You know, these aren't good solutions. With Giroud, you've got somebody you can bring off the bench who can mix it. I think he can play with Morata in certain situations. Morata's played with a big man before. Gives you options. The other good thing from Chelsea's perspective that they were very, very keen on, which is why the Dzeko deal didn't happen, is in 18 months, he's gone. He's off your books. People make a big deal of the fact that he's 32, but they did not want to commit to a long-term, expensive long-term contract when they know maybe Chelsea's next manager might not want Olivier Giroud around. And in that sense, I thought they were quite successful in getting him.
Let's be honest, if Giroud is pushing Morata, he'll fall over. Couldn't resist it, because that's all he's got to do. I mean, if Giroud can stay on his feet, right, and put himself around and be physical, straight away he can be better than Alvaro Morata at the moment, right? Because Alvaro Morata is a very good player, but we're not seeing it, right? We're not seeing it, and I think Giroud could push him, could be an option, because clearly Batshuayi was not in the manager's plan and he wanted something different. And as Gab said, this makes sense, albeit it's about 18 million or something, potentially for 18 months. But that's the way it's going these days. Clubs don't mind spending that.
I think the issue with Morata right now is just a lack of confidence. And as a result, going over is the easy option because he doesn't want to take the shot because he's been so poor in front of goal of
Well,
late.
that's even more reason to sort of puff your chest out and be physical and put yourself
he's
around.
taking the easy way out. He's going down, let somebody else take the pass. He's taking the easy way
He was
out.
at Real Madrid and he was at Juventus, and he wasn't always the #1 starter. Sometimes he was, but he wasn't the guy that those clubs relied on a regular basis. He's gone to London, they're in the Premier League, they're under pressure. Conte and Chelsea are now relying on Morata week in, week out. And I think he's feeling the pressure of that, and it's time for him to stand up.
If Morata struggles, could you see Giroud starting in Champions League?
Yes, absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. Has the experience and the know-how. I think he could do a job.
I have a tweet here.
Okay.
Directed to you.
Oh.
Because you've talked about this before, from Michael. He wants to know, do Man City players have a target on them? And how come the officials are not cracking down on it every game? It happens time and time again with minimal punishment. The challenge we saw on Brahim Diaz was like waist.
It was, but then David Silva had a bad challenge in the game. He gave a bad challenge out, excuse me. And Fernandinho stamped on somebody. So I have, before I have been on the side for bad challenges that have happened against them, and there have been a few, but I do think they were guilty themselves in this game against West Brom.
Yeah, this is not a great example. I mean, obviously that crazy Joe Bennett stuff over the weekend, I think Guardiola was absolutely right. In this game, I think it becomes harder to go and have a go at the referee when you have Fernandinho doing what he did, which, in some ways, the David Silva one, I almost feel like he gets kicked a lot. All right, so maybe he decided to get his own back. Still wrong. But the Fernandinho one, it's like 2 minutes into the game.
Referee, come on, you're not sending me off. I get kicked a lot in the game.
But whatever. You know what I'm saying? The Fernandinho one is just dirty, and it's dirty from a player who's what? He was banned twice last season, and he should know better because in many ways he's the one player in the midfield that's really difficult for Guardiola to replace.
And then at the same time, Sydney, during this game, you've got the two challenges early on that kind of incense the opposition, and then you're chasing shadows for 75 minutes. Not to excuse the type of challenge we saw, but sometimes these frustrations come in, creep in, and this is the result. But yes, something needs to be done regardless.
Stoke City's Jeff Cameron was left out of the U.S. men's national team's final 2 World Cup qualifiers. Apparently, he's not very happy about it, telling the New York Times, quote, Bruce Arena made decisions that cost us the World Cup. It's hard to argue it, Craig.
Correct. Bearing in mind he had 8 games out of the 10. Mm-hmm. So 2 were played, okay, it was bad. But he had time to recover. They did. They did recover. Yeah,
they were in 3rd place before the Trinidad match.
And only had to get themselves over that final hurdle, which was Shaka's depleted country.
Have we settled, was that Trinidad's B or C team?
We'll go with B.
You're being nice today.
We'll go with B minus. But whichever way, it's a game that the US should have won. And no question, Bruce Arena made mistakes. I don't think it takes a rocket science to figure that out. But at the same time, so did Jurgen Klinsmann. Keep in mind the position that Bruce Arena took over this team. Bottom of the hex, no points after 2 games. With a team that struggled in previous Gold Cups, I think, as easy a group as it was in the semi-final round, I just felt Jurgen Klinsmann made harder work of qualifying to that point than he should have.
So, go ahead. It's interesting, though, that you mentioned Jurgen Klinsmann, because later in the article he says if they'd have kept Klinsmann, they would have made the World Cup. I don't know that I agree with that.
I mean, look, I don't think it's entirely coincidental that, how he was left out of the last 2 games, right? Bruce Arena dropped him. So obviously he feels more comfortable with Jurgen Klinsmann. From what I can tell of Jeff Cameron, I don't know him personally, but he seems somebody who really thrives on confidence. And when you have a manager telling you, like, hey, look, I don't need you, stay home, I think that makes a big difference.
I personally think they would have got to the World Cup with Klinsmann, right? And that's just, it's hypothetical, but I personally think they would have got there. But there was a big purge to get him out. Right? It was a big purge to get him out, and I'm not saying long-term for the US he was the right coach. I don't think he was. But there's not a doubt, and we're not telling people anything they don't know, Bruce Arena came in, and in the end, it was an unmitigated shambles. Right? Now, he has to take responsibility for that. He had 8 games out of 10 to sort it out, and he couldn't do it. And that was including not winning in Trinidad and Tobago against the B team, just getting a point.
Shaka, do you read any bitterness in these quotes from Cameron?
Yes, without question. I don't understand the point of saying this at this juncture. We all know it is what it is. As easy as it is to say, if Jurgen Klinsmann were in charge, we would have qualified. Equally, you could say if Bruce Arena had taken over 6 months before, Trinidad and Tobago would have qualified. It makes absolutely no difference at this point. Personally, I think Sunil Gulati was a little bit slow in pulling the trigger on Jurgen Klinsmann. But again, it is what it is.
Everybody in U.S. soccer wants to move past this. Clearly, Jeff Cameron has not. Welcome into Extra Time, everybody's favorite part of the show, because we get to answer your questions.
Is that why?
But because it's the last thing we do usually.
Okay.
First from Cody, straight to you. Why is @Marcotti giving Aubamayeng a C for his transfer grade? I guess you're actually giving Arsenal a C.
Yes, I'm giving the deal a C. Simply because this is a player who was offered to everybody in the summer. There were no takers. You still ended up spending a lot of money for him. I mean, if you compare him to other players who moved in the summer. He's 29 years old. You already have a center forward who's actually the club's record signing, who's only been there for 6 months, and people now can say, oh, Lacazette is rubbish, but you know what? Why don't you give the guy a little bit of time? People thought Robert Pires was rubbish for the first 12 months he was there, and then he turned out to be phenomenal. And I also think it adds to that sort of cohort of players who are in their late 20s, between him, Mkhitaryan, obviously Özil now extending, and I don't think it's a good situation to be in when you've got 3-4 players who are all roughly the same age, who are all kind of getting on together.
But at least Arsenal made money over the window, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, they didn't. They lost money. It was close.
But it was close. At least it was close.
I think Arsenal had to sign him. I mean, the trouble with Arsenal, outside of the top four, no Champions League football this season, outside of the top four, Alexis Sanchez is going, you've got to make a big splash. I don't think they could have turned anywhere else. At least they get somebody.
Aubamayeng can't play in Europa League, and that's probably their best ticket to Champions League, right?
Yeah. I presume this grading was online, and we can find it if we so wish.
Gab's a tough teacher.
FC.com.
Gab's a tough professor as well.
You can, yes.
Yes.
We already had a lot of abuse for it.
Have you? All right, we got
That's surprising. On Twitter?
Do you get?
That never happens on Twitter.
Do you get a lot of abuse for the
musings.
for musings and stuff like that?
I get
Marcotti's musings and because you know we get all you know it's the way we do our job, and you know we put ourselves out there, and it doesn't really matter. Do you get as much abuse for doing that as you do for TV, more or less? The people get really upset about articles.
From what I can tell, people generally abuse you more than they abuse me.
No, I
it's
understand.
all
That wasn't the
relative.
question.
No, I understand, and I'm taking that.
His musings are more than 140 characters. So people aren't going to read
No,
this.
I think, look, if people have a disagreement, if they're civil, and I have the time, I'll happily engage, and normally, you know, we can
I've seen
agree.
that.
We can agree to disagree. You know, if people are just going to go and insult and write in all caps and whatever, then, you know.
Yeah, you don't.
Gab's a nice guy. I want to be just like Gab when I grow up.
I don't know why I get as much grief.
Yeah, I don't either.
I know why.
Strange.
Honesty is always the best policy.
Next question coming from a comedian, apparently. Hey, Shaka and Craig, can you please tell me why Alexis Sanchez didn't play? Is he at home counting his money?
Ooh. As an Arsenal fan, United were poor. Alexis Sanchez was poor, and that's all you can say about that. And despite it all, United are still sitting in second.
Arsenal would have him back. No, they wouldn't. But you know, he would. If Arsenal fans would have Alexis Sanchez in the team, obviously there's a tongue-in-cheek from that particular person.
Let me ask you this.
Fine, it's understandable.
AFC, what the fans.
Right? So obviously Alexis Sanchez was an Arsenal player. They couldn't reach a deal on his contract, he's similar age to Aubamayeng, right? If you were Arsenal, would you have been better off keeping Alexis Sanchez and not getting Aubamayeng? Because I think in the end, the numbers, it's going to cost you roughly the same.
I know, but I think I think he was becoming more of an issue
Right.
at the club.
Whereas Aubameyang's never had issues with his club.
No, but he might.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
This is the odd thing. Like, you know, in the end, we talk about winners and losers. I don't know.
Transfer deadline day question here. Why did Chelsea wait until deadline day to make deals happen instead of getting deals done earlier?
Well, I think you'll find that Ross Barkley was done early.
That was good. He's been good for them so far. This
Or
transfer
did it get
window.
done late because they didn't get it done the summer before?
You could look at it that way too. No, I think
Very late.
I think actually Chelsea were in a pretty strong position in this one, right? So they had Batshuayi, who Conte doesn't like but can probably live with, and the only way they were going to get, because you needed Batshuayi to get the Aubamayeng deal done, because Dortmund didn't want Giroud, they said, all right, well let's wait until the end and we'll get Giroud at a price that we're very comfortable with. So I think from their perspective, it worked out fine.
This is
We
way too
writing on there.
I was just writing down the Chelsea ins. Giroud, Barkley, and
Oh, this is
Palmieri.
way too serious for me now.
I was just going to ask if you...
Oh, no, stop. Ask me about Jack Harrison, because I didn't answer that
Emerson
question.
Palmieri, by the way,
Yeah.
he obviously hasn't played for 6 months, or he's played very little in the past 6 months. But last season, I thought he was phenomenal as an attacking fullback, and that could be one of those transfers that goes under the radar, but actually turns out to be
We just go.
really, really good from Chelsea.
Wanna go? Let's go.
Well, Craig's ready to get out of here.
No, I'm not. I was just. I'm fine. People get, if we don't answer the questions, some people get upset. They don't quite see the light side of.
Would you like to weigh in on Jack Harrison?
No.
Okay.
I answered it. I explained
answered on
myself
Twitter,
on social media this morning to a couple of gentlemen who were fine. That was fine. But sometimes we are tongue in cheek. There's a lot of sarcasm and irony, and a lot of people take themselves way too serious in our business. Way too, not just here, but in different countries. All right.
Zaka, you all right?
Is there anything you want to get off your chest here?
Yeah, I look a bit. This stripes make me look a bit fat.
The pocket square. The pocket square is making you look fat.
That bloody pocket space make me look fat. Get off of here.
That is, that's what it is. All right, that's the end of Extra Time. We'll see you for tomorrow's show.
Yeah. I'll come in for extra time if you want. I'm off tomorrow. I'll come in.
It's all right.
But there's no Europa
It's
League.
all right. You're good.
It's a threat, not a promise.
Yeah, you're good.
Barcelona, semifinals of the Copa del Rey.
All right.
Wrap it up, man, for
Plenty
God's
more
sake.
reaction to all the transfers. There he goes.